Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to give some feedback on Mukhammad's speaking test from yesterday. Remember, if you'd like to have your own free practice IELTS speaking test with feedback, or if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, join one of my groups. I'm on Facebook and Telegram, links in the description and so on and so forth. But let's get into today's feedback. Good afternoon. My name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Yes. My full name is Mukhammad IELTS, but you can call me Mukhammad.
Okay, thank you, Muhammad. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or do you study?
Currently, I am a student at university, so it's my last year. Yeah.
And what about that use of so? Currently, I'm a student at university, so it's my last year. I know we often use so as a parasite word or a filler or something like this, but this sounds like it's being used as a conjunction, so I don't see that like result. Therefore, it's my last year in university. Doesn't really make much logical sense. What do you study?
Yeah. I study technology. Yeah.
And we've had this with a few candidates before where you're not always sure if the candidate has finished their turn. Like, I study technology. Yeah. And it's like, okay, did you want to continue there? And technology feels quite broad. I don't know. Can you study like a BA in technology? I don't know. I thought there must be something more specific, but I might be wrong. And why did you decide to study technology?
Because I really like to fix the engine of the car.
Notice the rhythm. I really like to fix the engine of the car. Just suggests that maybe language isn't really readily available, but okay.
So my subject, it's just a way to be.
Yeah, a way to be. We've seen this many times with candidates from Uzbekistan, the difference between the w sound and the v sound. The way to be, not way, but way.
Engineer, that's why I choose this.
And also notice there's this kind of strange stress, a way to be an engineer. So that's why I chose this. It just seems sentence stress is a bit strange. Listen again.
Engineer, that's why I choose
let's go back a
this.
little more.
Because I really like to fix the engine of the car, so my subject, it's just a way to be engineer. That's why I choose this.
One misses the article. So the stress timing is a little bit strange. It's not very natural. And we know, for me, that's the biggest block to get a band 7 in pronunciation. So band 7 in pronunciation, I want to see good evidence of stress timing, good evidence of intonation. Not perfect, not always great, but enough of it.
Subject.
And what do you enjoy most? And again, we get that weird awkwardness at the end of the turn where it seems like the candidate's finished the turn and then wants to add something else. I strongly recommend not doing that. Of course, you will not be punished, you will not be marked down for doing this, but as an examiner, it is it can be a little bit annoying where you think like, damn it, you end your turn there. Don't try to add information when I start my turn. Just notice it again. You can just kind of see it.
Engineer, that's why I choose this subject.
And what do you okay, enjoy most about studying?
Well, I really like just the teacher's attitude, how they connect with students, and they are just friendly. It's really one of the best.
So candidate is demonstrating a willingness to speak at length, trying to extend the answer. Okay.
Huge plus for it. Yeah, I really like it. And just all subjects.
But it's basic, right? I like the teacher's attitudes. They're friendly, and then all subjects.
Directly gives for the students.
All subject directly gives for the students.
Just correctly, without any difficulty.
Thank you. Correctly. So that vocab is just weird. I don't know. All subject they give to the students directly. I think he means, the teachers give the information directly, or the teachers teach in a very clear and understandable way. But the language that the candidate uses makes it sound a bit confusing. And what are you planning to do when you finish studying? So future reference, I always advocate, not always, yeah, I almost always advocate for good natural responses, rather than trying to game the IELTS. But we should also kind of maybe keep in mind that this is a future focused questions. What are your plans after you finish studying? And so what, the question makers are really, they've put that question in there because they want to see how you manage future time constructions.
Yeah, I don't have lots of options. So
I don't have lots of options, which is present time.
one of them studying in abroad.
One of them studying in abroad, which is weird phrasing and again not future focused.
So that's why I'm preparing for IELTS to
I'm preparing for IELTS, present focused.
get scholarship, maybe.
Okay, but to get a scholarship, that shows good purpose.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, thank you. But we didn't really get anything really future focused. Now, would that be a problem? Would an examiner say, right, the candidate doesn't demonstrate that he can use the future? No, not really. Not that one question by itself. But for me, I like to be nice and simple. And so when people ask me about the present, I talk about the present. And when people ask me about the past, I talk about the past. And when people ask me about the future, I talk about the future. Right? Whereas this, I've asked the candidate about his future plans and he's told me about the present situation. So, I do think too much of that can be a problem, but just doing it once is okay. And it is, it can be a part of natural communication too. Just because someone's asked you about the future doesn't mean you 100% have to speak about it. But again, as a person that doesn't like to take risks, question about the present, talk about the present. Question about the future, use grammar that talks about the future. Let's talk about friends. Do you have a lot of friends?
Yes, I do. I have a
Cool, really like this. Yes, I do. Very underrated use of modals or auxiliaries. No, not modals, auxiliary verbs, tense auxiliaries. Do you do this? Yes, I do. Have you done this? Yes, I have. Will you do it soon? Yes, I will. Yeah, really cool.
school friends. I have a friend student friend.
Candidate uses a lot with plurals, right? I have friends, and he's like the teachers or something like this. He often uses, and I don't know if it's an which is like a disfluent or if it's an like an article but it sounds like an article. I have friends.
And I have a university friends.
I have university friends. That's definitely a wrong article.
So even I have lots of friends.
I have lots of friends. Okay, lots of doesn't work. I have lots of friends. Yes, I have a lot of friends. Yes, I have lots of friends. No.
In my childhood friends, I really like them because.
And again, we just get like a list, right? I have a lot of friends. I have friends from my childhood. I have friends from university. I have friends from school. Yeah, nobody. Listing is often what people do at B1 when they can't extend naturally. They just list things, and we don't want that.
Because I know them how
Thank you.
respectful they
And
are.
that's unfortunately what will happen if you spend all of your time listing. When it comes time for you then to go into detail, the examiner will cut you off because the examiner thinks, well, they're looking at the stopwatch and they're thinking, well, I've got a bunch more of these questions that I need to get through. The candidate has had the time to answer the question, but unfortunately has used that time listing things, and now it's time to move on. Sorry.
Yeah.
What do you like doing with your friends?
Mostly playing online games.
Cool, and nice, really direct answer.
I'm not gonna be, telling you just that it's.
I'm not gonna be telling you. I like that grammar. That's very, very natural. That use of like gonna be doing something.
Being honest.
The pronunciation is a little bit like not very smooth, but the grammar's cool.
Just playing online games like PlayStation,
Okay, just repeating the idea.
computer games.
Yeah. So we get playing online games. I'm not going to lie to you. I play online games. That's not development, right? That's giving an answer, adding a comment, and then giving the same answer again, which isn't development. It's not extending. It's just going back to the main point. Like, what type of food do you like? Oh, I like hot dogs. I think I'm not going to lie to you. So yeah, I like hot dogs. There's no development there. And do you find it easy to make new friends?
Yes, I do,
Cool, again, yes, I do, nice.
Because I have a well attitude.
I have a well attitude. So well is an adverb. Well can sometimes be an adjective, meaning like healthy. But I have a well attitude. I have a good attitude. So mixing up adverbs and adjectives, like we should get better. I mean, when I say we should do better, I'm thinking of it like when I spoke to the candidate before the test, he said, he's aiming for 7.5. And so if you're aiming for a 7.5, you really have to know, when to use adjectives and when to use adverbs of manner.
And how I have a feelings to be connected.
To have feelings, to be and again feelings and to be connected. So there is a bit of noticeable disfluency there
with people, so I can make a lot of friends easily without any difficulties.
And again, we get that summarizing sentence at the end. We really don't need to summarize. Summarizing is good for essays. Summarizing can be good for speaking part 2. But I don't like this maybe tactic of giving an answer and then summarizing towards the end. It's part 1. These are short, snappy answers that, you could have a bit of development, but we don't need those like, in conclusion, I find it easy to make friends. It's not what we want in an interview. And did you have a best friend when you were at school? So notice this question is past focused, right? We had the question earlier, which was future focused, and the candidate didn't offer any future time grammar. This question is past focused. Did you have a best friend when you were at school?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Yes, I did. Not yes, I do.
And we still talk.
The candidate has some connection problems here. Nothing I can do about that. Unfortunately, I could be stricter and just end the call. Sometimes I feel like doing that when there are technical problems, but okay.
With him, he is still my best friend. Even
I think your connection has. I think you have connection problems.
yeah, someone was calling.
Let me repeat that last question. Did you have a best friend when you were at school? And unfortunately, the candidate mentioned afterwards that he felt like his performance got worse after this phone call. And, he said he's living in a dormitory, I think, and his friend was trying to get into the room and was knocking on the door. So the candidate got really distracted. If you want to make the most of these practice tests, give yourself test-like conditions. Make sure you're in a place where you have peace and quiet and you're not going to be disturbed. That's up to you guys to do that. I can't do that for you. And for me, it's a bit of a waste now if I can only see the candidate's performance after he's distracted. It doesn't feel like real test conditions. So, but that's people, unfortunately.
Yes, I did, and I still.
Oh, yes, I did. Cool.
Talk with him.
And but going right back to the present, right? And I still talk with him.
I still talk with him. He is my best friend.
He is my. I mean, it's a past focus question, right?
And I don't choose
getting disfluent, getting a bit uncomfortable.
Friends, know more about their character. I choose them by their personality.
And again, this in terms of logical sense, it just doesn't make logical sense. I don't choose my friends based on their character. I choose them based on their personality. Well, character and personality are synonyms. It's like saying he's not fat, he's really overweight. I don't quite get that.
It's most necessary.
Okay. Thank you. Let's talk now about going on holiday. How often do you go on holiday?
Seldom do I go to the holiday.
Okay, so we get some inversion in there, which is, C1 grammar. Seldom do I go on holiday. The problem with it is that this inversion is like an emphatic structure in English, right? So it needs to have some emotional weight. We prefer to use it with never have I read such a terrible book in like a very emotively strong way. And when your intonation doesn't match the grammar, seldom do I go to the holiday. It just, yeah. So the grammar is like, oh, cool. The candidate is demonstrating some knowledge of complex grammar and is using it, reasonably appropriately because it's a how often question and he's using a negative adverbial seldom and then do I. And then he gets it wrong where he says go to the holiday. Go to, go on, they have different collocations, right? Go to the gym, go to the library, go to the shops, go on holiday, go on a trip, go on a tour, and so on. So kind of gets it, he gets the difficult grammar in and then makes a mistake with the very basic stuff. So, yeah.
So I have a university. I am preparing for IELTS.
I have a university. No idea what that means.
So I don't have enough time to going outside.
I don't have enough time to going. Like, again, when we're aiming for that C1, that band 7 or higher, basic gerunds and infinitives, like have time to do something, not have time to doing something. I would expect candidates, even at B2 level, to get that right most of the time.
Yeah. But sometimes I want to take some.
Cool. I want to take. I like that, like shortening of wanna. I want to take some. Cool.
Some rest. So.
But I don't want to take some rest. I want to have a rest is more common, not take some rest.
I go to the.
Take a break, maybe. Take a rest, maybe. Take some rest is a bit strange.
Tashkent, which is the capital of Uzbekistan, or.
Thank you. Yeah. Again, the answer's gone on long enough, and I like to go to Tashkent, which is the capital of Uzbekistan. Okay, fine, developed, but let's move on. When did you last go on holiday?
Yeah.
Candidate also has a tendency to say yeah in response to questions. I don't like this. It suggests that there's a problem. The candidate isn't confident with the comprehension, like they need to listen carefully and go, yeah. But okay.
I think it was 3 weeks ago.
I think it was 3 weeks ago. If you went on holiday 3 weeks ago, wouldn't you be more sure of this? Like, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, fine. Right? But I think it was 3 weeks ago.
I went to my grandparents' house.
I went to my grandparents' house,
which is located in the village. So it was
in the village, maybe in the countryside or in a village, but certainly not in the village.
a place who can rest.
Place who can or place which can?
And who can hear even the birds' noise.
A place who can hear the bird's noise. So again, there's an attempt at a relative clause, but the candidate gets the relative pronoun wrong. So we have different relative pronouns: who, which, where, whose, that, even what sometimes. The candidate doesn't get the relative pronoun right. And also, he should add a subject. It's the place where you can or where one can hear. The place doesn't hear, right? It's a place who can hear the birds. Yeah, so this use of relative clauses, we teach relative clauses like first we introduce them usually at A2 and then we look at them in more detail in B1 and we get into the really complex stuff in B2 and then the madness in C1. But this is like the B1 stuff or maybe even elements of the A2 relative clauses that the candidate is unfortunately getting wrong.
Which is really interesting, yeah.
And do you prefer to relax or to be active when you're on holiday?
Yeah, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I like to be more active.
I will say the candidate's pronunciation is very, very clear. That's a really positive thing about the pronunciation. I still think he is showing some intonation in here. I just think the stress timing is a bit strange. But the pronunciation is very clear.
And just playing with my friends, just some physical activities like playing football.
Again with stress timing that he says physical activities, or it should be physical activities. So knowing like physical activities about the word stress, which word should be stressed, physical or activities. I like doing physical activities. I like doing physical activities. For me, that's more natural.
And or just chatting with them, reading some books. Yeah.
Again, ends it short, stops short with, yeah, chatting with them, reading some books. Yeah, that isn't a natural way of communicating. So I know a lot of people do it. They want to end it with so yeah, and using this once or twice is fine, but using it over and over, it becomes formulaic, it becomes too noticeable. Okay, thank you. Now, in this next part, okay, so thoughts on part 1. The candidate is staying on topic. The candidate makes attempts to keep going. However, he doesn't develop appropriately. In my opinion, he often repeats ideas or uses something like quite empty or something even confusing or illogical in some of the answers. Some of the answers, there was an attempt to explain what was nice about his grandparents' home. The wording and phrasing made it a bit awkward, but it was some evidence of development. So, the candidate shows a willingness to speak at length, great, but doesn't successfully extend or develop topics, unfortunately. In terms of grammar, more or less, okay, but there seems to be a limitation that the candidate's stuck like a lot in present time and doesn't seem willing to speak about the future or the past. Always, not always, but quite often brings it back to the present, which may be a sign that there's a lack of range. But the candidate does attempt things like complex gerunds and infinitives, and attempts things like relative clauses, which adds complexity to the sentence type. So cool, but for me, not enough accuracy for that. For C1, not close to this. I'm thinking, 5 or 6, and I think 5 or 6 for most things. Pronunciation again very clear, which is usually enough to get that band 6, but to get the band 7, we want more signs of sentence stress, and I just don't see that. I find that the candidate has more syllable timed stuff rather than stress timed. Some languages are syllable timed, some languages are stress timed. English is a stress timed language, not a syllable timed language, but the candidate often speaks English as if it was a syllable timed language like this, unfortunately. Yeah, and in terms of vocab, not because of that lack of development, I don't feel like we're going deep enough into subjects. The candidate certainly has enough vocab to deal with the questions on a very basic level. It's just whether he can go deeper into topics and show that specific topic specific vocab. But anyway, let's get into part 2. The candidate needs to talk about an energetic person that he knows. And the point I make often to my students and to candidates is, think about what the main idea is here, right? Describe an energetic person that you know. So, of course, you have to describe that person, but that word energetic is important. I want to, from your turn here, I want to get a sense of this person's energy. So I want to feel that this person is energetic. I want to know how this person shows their energy, maybe the influence that that energy has on other people. And of course, I want to know how this person feels about that person. So yeah, let's have a look. Let's get into it. Let's see how our candidate does. I'd like you to start now. Know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Well, I'm going to be talking about.
Going to be talking. I like that, future continuous. Nice. There are some strange rules with future continuous. You might be thinking, oh, oh, this isn't. We must use future continuous when we talk about a specific moment in the future. No, well, no. We often use gonna be doing just instead of gonna do, or even will be doing. Like, what are your plans tomorrow? Oh, I'll be going to the gym, or I'm going to be having dinner with my friends. We often use this like an informal, instead of going to do something, going to be doing something. And it works. It works fine.
My English teacher, who is really active women that I have.
She is really active women that I have ever. So when we use this that I have ever, we usually use superlative, right? She's one of the most active women. One of the most active women, most active, superlative. You speak Russian, превосходной степень. But the candidate doesn't use that. The candidate only uses one of the active women I've ever, and it doesn't work there.
Ever seen in my entire life to be an active teacher, you know. She is really active, even though she teaches me online.
Teach should be teaches.
You know, she forced me to do all my
She forced me should be forces.
homework.
But we
So
do get that in nice infinitive complex structure. Force somebody to do something.
that's why I feel it. She is one of the active women. Yeah.
Again, she's one of the active women. I'm thinking, what is this category? The active women. One of the most active women. Fine. One of the active women.
Yeah. And you know, the firstly, I'm going to be talking about.
And then the candidate says, firstly, I'm going to be talking about. Well, it's not firstly here, right? Because you've already told me stuff. So you can't then, you know, after 30 seconds say, firstly. Yeah, that's just wrong sequencing.
Her personality. If I don't do my homeworks,
Homework is usually used as an uncountable noun. It doesn't. We don't use it in the plural form. We don't use homeworks.
it's just the she gives me a minus or.
So I'm going to tell you about her personality. If I don't do my homework, she gives me a minus. That's not really connected to her energy, and it's not even connected to her personality. That's connected to her behavior as a teacher.
Or just the bad results, you know, which makes you to be better.
Okay, it should be makes you better, or makes you be better, or makes you do better, but not makes you to be better. So force somebody to do something, yes. Make somebody to do something, no. Make somebody do something.
Or to be better. And the next thing is just that she calls to my mom or
She calls my mum, not calls to my mum.
dad, to talk about my character, why I am not doing my homework.
Your character or your behavior? I'm not sure that you got the right word there. And again, how is this connected to her personality? She calls my parents. That's not connected to her personality. And you said you were going to talk about her personality. And it's also not connected to her energy levels.
Or why I'm not I'm not active. She forced me all parts, you know.
Should be forces.
That's why I can say
She forced me all parts. Don't know what that means.
that she is one of the active women.
And again, we get that repeating of she's one of the active women. So we get repetition of ideas 3 times with the same mistake 3 times. For me, it's clear that the candidate is lost, is freestyling, and is just trying to add. I think I'm always against gaming the IELTS exam. I think whenever people try to game the IELTS exam, it generally doesn't go well. But part 2 is definitely something that you can learn, right? You can learn how to prepare for a 2-minute monologue. You can learn how to take notes that will see you through a 2-minute monologue. For me, it's clear that you don't have notes that allow you to speak for 2 minutes on this topic.
And
you can see, right? And candidate is clearly thinking, I don't know what to say, and is just looking to add some information.
We talk with him.
We talk with him? Who is we? First of all, you and who is him? I don't know, because your teacher's female, you said.
3 times in a week.
3 times a week, not 3 times in a week. So a lot of these small little errors.
Because of our lesson, and she teaches me
Teaches.
for all sections. I mean, listening, reading, and writing as well. So he has a.
He? Is it he or she? It's getting confusing, no?
Good results from English, and she teaches me.
She has a good results from English.
She teaches me by her heart. So
I think the candidate she teaches me by her heart. I guess he's saying heart, right? And the way that the word heart is written often makes people mispronounce that word, but it's heart. But she teaches me by her heart. Again, I'm not sure what that means.
It gives you more energy to be a
Okay, we're linking it now finally to some energy.
proactive, right? And yeah.
Okay, thank you. So thoughts on part 2, looking at it in a very superficial way, the candidate described his teacher. He finds his teacher to be very active and very energetic, and he spoke a bit about how she works as a teacher and how she forces him to do things, and she's very active. He mentioned this a few times. He didn't really explain how he feels about that person, but it was, you could get the sense that it was positive, that he appreciates his teacher's work. Cool. So on a very superficial level, candidate has spoken about an energetic person that he knows. However, I didn't really get the sense of her energy, and I didn't really. And I mean, all I can say going away from this is he has a teacher. The teacher's female, probably. She gives him a minus. She seems quite strict, right? She gives him negative marks if he doesn't do his homework, and she calls his parents. And that's about it. So we didn't really, we weren't super informative in this turn. Quite a few very basic grammatical mistakes there too, unfortunately. Some nice, forces me to do something. That type of stuff is good, and there are attempts like makes me to be better, which you can see he's attempting to use complex grammar. So he doesn't just rely on simple grammar, he does make attempts at complex grammar, but they really not that accurate. And unfortunately, we do have quite a few mistakes with fairly basic grammar. Pronunciation the same, clear, but a little bit staccato. Yeah, moving on to part 3. All right, so you've been talking about your English teacher who's an energetic person. Let's talk a little more about energetic people now. Firstly, do you think energetic people are naturally born that way, or do people develop this quality? The easiest way to approach this is to pick one of the answers, choose option A or choose option B, and then explain why.
Depends on their.
So many candidates reply with "it depends on something," and then I don't know. It's more difficult. It's a lot more difficult, I think, to get through those questions when you're saying "it depends on," because you have to then explain a lot more. Oh, I think people are just naturally born like it. Like you see, I think a lot of like politicians and public speakers, they just seem to have this like magnetic personality. And while I do think you can learn some soft skills, I just think either you're an energetic person or you're not. That's
Personality. Some people, firstly, can be a column, just
can be a column. I think the candidate's saying calm, but column.
relaxed, and then
Relaxed should be relaxed.
they will create it by themselves.
They can be calm, relaxed, and then they will create it by themselves. Don't know what that means.
To be more energetic, to be more proactive, right? By themselves. They do more. They do more. They do more.
Breaking down with fluency.
More exercises to be energetic, like going to the gym. Maybe they try to talk a lot, right? It can be a huge plus, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do energetic people influence those around them?
Depends on, again,
We get this. It depends on. I think this is like the 4th or the 5th time in the test that the candidates use this. It depends on. Be brave. Pick an answer and defend it.
depends on their
Everything depends on everything all the time, right? We know that, right? Oh, what type of person are you? Oh, it depends on the mood. depends on if it's morning or if it's evening. It depends on if I've eaten or if I haven't. It depends on if I've slept well or not, right? Everything. Do you like tea? Oh, it depends on the situation. If I've just drunk a cup of coffee, then I don't want to have a cup of tea. However, if it's the evening, I don't drink coffee. Everything depends on everything. So we don't need to say it depends on. I mean, there are some situations where maybe you can use it, but for me, it's overused by candidates. Pick it up, pick a side, and defend it.
Personality, right? They will try to be more active on their own to help.
So, how do energetic people influence people around them? I'm not getting any. I don't get a clear sense of the answer here.
Them every time, it shows their energy and activities, right?
And the candidate keeps saying this, right? And I think that's all right. Don't think you should overuse it, but it's absolutely fine. But it doesn't. It's not effective when you're giving a very, very confusing answer and then going, right. It's like I'm thinking, I don't get the answer.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So I didn't really. I can't say now that I understand how energetic people influence others. And are energetic personalities always seen as positive? Yes or no, and why?
No, not every time.
Cool. Good. I'm glad that we're taking a side.
I can't say it. The main reason is sometimes it may create some problems.
Okay, so being energetic isn't always positive. Why? Because sometimes it may create some problems. Okay, that's kind of saying the same thing, that it's negative. What kind of problems?
If you talk a lot, you may
Cool. Talking a lot. Absolutely.
you may create some problems.
What kind of problems?
If you talk,
And for me, this is always the difference, right? Not always, between that like C1 level vocab and the not C1 level vocab. The C1s can not tell me that there's a problem. The C1s have enough vocab to explain in detail what kind of problems it causes, not just to say it creates problems. Same thing with like movies. Like, do you like that movie? Yes. Why? It's interesting. Don't tell me that it's interesting. Tell me what is interesting about it. Don't tell me that it causes problems. Tell me what problems it causes specifically.
without thinking too much, it may also make any mistakes.
It may also make any mistakes. Don't know what that means.
That's why just a person should keep a balance between them.
You said if a person talks too much, it can lead to problems. What kind of problems? And this is, in part 3, this is what you'll get if you're using what we call generic language, language that could be applied to many different situations, and you're not specific enough. The examiner may want to test you. I love doing this. I love listening to candidates' answers and asking them for more detail, because this is the only way I can find out if you have that vocab or not.
Well, sometimes some people might not be able to control
Might not be able to. I love that. Really nice.
themselves by hearing.
Control themselves. So the candidate has real pronunciation problems with like relaxed, themselves is, sometime is. For me, it's amazing how I repeat with every candidate from Uzbekistan the same issues with pronunciation. Obviously, people don't watch my videos, right? And people could watch my videos. If you're from Uzbekistan, they could watch the videos and go, hold on, every candidate from Uzbekistan says relaxed. I should fix this and say relaxed.
Just a bad word or just listening too much, right?
But of course, it's never that easy. Some people, even though they know the mistake, they have the habit. It's really, really difficult to break the habit and relearn something new. I know.
That's why you should try to understand your partner. Is he energetic as you?
But again, in this answer, we have no real specific explanation of the kinds of problems that can appear if someone is too energetic.
Or you should uh, you should you should be like him, you know. I mean, you should to be.
And it's clear, the candidate now has discomfort. You can see him almost like licking his lips a little bit. Like, this is something that people do when they're nervous. Everything gets dry in the throat and they start licking their lips like a lizard. And it's clear that this, I don't think he's doing this. I don't think this negative-ish body language is happening because of his nerves. I don't think he's a very nervous guy. I think he's quite a confident speaker. But it is clear that the candidate just doesn't have an idea or doesn't know how to express the idea clearly.
Help with him, not by not talking too much. Yeah.
All right. I think the candidate has an idea but has failed really to communicate that clearly. Right, let's move on and talk about energy in the workplace. Do energetic workers perform better at work than others? Yes or no, plus why?
Yes, I think so.
Great, I think so, great.
The main reason is they, they do a lot of exercises.
They do a lot of exercises. Energetic people do a lot of exercises. Not necessarily true. They do a lot of exercises. There's no link between being like an energetic person, which is like, hey, how you doing? Hey, and doing exercises. I don't think.
All their homeworks, you know.
They do their homeworks. Homework is something you have at school or university, not at the workplace.
I mean,
and I don't think there's really a link between being an energetic person and doing homework. In fact, probably there's a closer link between being introverted and doing homework.
They will do it, and they show to their boss by their full potential.
They show their boss their full potential. How? I don't really get that being energetic makes it easier for you to show your boss your full potential. You'll have to explain that.
And then they can reach high level easily without working just a year by years, you know.
They can reach a high level easily. How does being energetic help them to reach that level? We haven't explained that. Can you? And I was so confused. Usually I listen to the candidate's answer and I think, okay, they haven't really gone into detail. And then I paraphrase the candidate's point back to them and ask them to explain. I found it difficult to paraphrase the candidate's answer back because I was just confused. Explain what you mean, that energetic people find it easier to show their boss how they work?
Yeah, they can show their full potential for.
So the candidate's reasserting, right? They can show their full potential. That's just restating the claim, right? Let's say you ask me, okay, are all Welsh people aggressive? And I say, yes, all Welsh people are aggressive because Welsh people, when they're aggressive, they do aggressive things. And then maybe you say, okay, can you explain what you mean when you say that all Welsh people do aggressive things? And I say, yes, all Welsh people are aggressive and they do aggressive things. This isn't explanatory.
Their balls and how they are.
Why is it easier for energetic people to show their full potential? I want to that why for energetic people?
Yeah, because they will be more likely to be interesting and
they will be more likely to be I love the grammar. Will be more likely to be. That's cool. That's good. We're boosting. I was thinking in part 2, maybe the grammar's dropped to a 5. I'm now leaning far more closely to that 6.
And curious about how boosting this work, that's why by that they can boost their skills.
Yeah, again, I don't have a satisfactory answer to that, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what can companies do to make sure that their workers have high levels of motivation and energy? Not the easiest question if you're 20 years old. I think if you've like worked in an office or something for 10 years, if you're 30 years old, you'll probably find it much, much easier to answer this.
Yeah, by giving them more presentations.
Companies should give their workers more presentations, and that will help them to be more energetic and motivated. Well, hopefully you're going to explain.
Some motivations as well.
They should give them some motivations. So what can companies do to make their staff motivated? They should give them some motivations.
It may also create some people's activities.
It may create some people's activities. No idea what that means.
And if you give them all day, just some motivations with some salary, right?
So the candidate now is giving the consequences. Like, if you give them some motivation, they will blah 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 blah. That's not what we want. We want to explain what companies can do to make their staff motivated.
Plus, and it's also can create energy, and it leads to your work to be better.
Leads to your work being better, but okay.
Just
And finally, is it more important for leaders to be energetic or to be calm? Pick one and defend it.
Again, it's just to be energetic. It's good, just but not all the time, as I mentioned it. But mostly,
I mentioned, not mentioned.
Yes, to be energetic, it's
cool. I'm glad he's picked a clear position.
Good for people to create the room for another.
Being energetic is good to create the room for another year.
For another their chapter of their life.
For another their chapter of their life. Don't understand what that means. The question is it good for leaders to be energetic or calm? Pick one and explain why. And I don't understand the answer. Sorry. I know I've said that a lot, and I'm sorry for being negative, but I really want you to understand, because there's a difference between the language that we have in our head and the language that goes into somebody else's head. And I think because you do have a huge problem with coherence, it's really useful. I hope it's really useful for you to understand that the points that you are making are not clear for me as a listener. Now, what you do about that, that's up to you. Simplify. Pick simple sides and choose simple ideas. Maybe that will help. Maybe your ideas are a little bit complex. Maybe you're thinking of the ideas in your own language and then trying to explain those difficult ideas. Maybe one idea is to, be like Homer Simpson and to think about things in a very simple way. Is it good for leaders to be calm or energetic? I think it's good for leaders to be energetic because everybody likes energetic people. And if you are a leader, then you have to speak in front of people. And if you have a lot of energy when you speak in front of people, then a lot of people can be motivated. Very simple idea, but very clear, very on point, not complicated.
Which is huge plus. And then they can, even they don't have any jobs, they can,
even if they don't have any jobs,
find a way to make
salary
a lot. Yeah. They can create a lot of businesses. Yeah.
Thank you. That is the end of the test. Okay, so he really struggled in part 3. Just, there wasn't one question, I feel, where he got a clear idea across. Some of the positions were clear, like, oh, I'd like this one, or I prefer this one, or it depends. The positions were clear, but the explanation and the development just really, really unclear. And so let's have a look at our band descriptors and let's award the marks. For me, not a particularly difficult one to mark. I think fluency and coherence has to be band 5. Usually able to keep going, yes. Let's change the color of that pencil, shall we? Usually able to keep going, yes. Relies on repetition, does rely on repetition and self-correction quite a lot. Not so much slow speech, but relies on repetition and self-correction. One of the active people. Hesitations are often associated with mid-sentence searches for fairly basic lexes. Yeah, maybe. Overuse of certain discourse markers. A lot of that's why a lot of some misuse of discourse markers like even and again with complex speech causes disfluency. I think that is true. Now there's nothing there about clear topic development that comes in band 7. Band 7 we have this idea. Let's have a look. Oh no, there's not even anything in there in band 7. Amazing. In band 8, we see this topic development is coherent, appropriate, and relevant. But I definitely think for band 7, you should be on topic and you should be able to develop appropriately. There must be that word appropriately somewhere in 7. No. Why isn't it 6? Well, coherence may be lost at times as a result of hesitation. For me, coherence, I can't say that it's just at times. All of part 3, for me, the coherence was a big problem. So yeah, band 5 for me for fluency and coherence. I do think the candidate is relatively fluent. But yeah, for me, 5. Now, lexical resource, I do think the candidate has enough probably for the 6, so sufficient to discuss topics at length is potentially a problem. I mean, he was trying to discuss topics at length, and I don't think it was a vocab problem. It was like an idea generation or whatever it was. Vocabulary use may be inappropriate. Yeah, meaning is clear in general. Yeah, I would say like the he, she stuff maybe made things a bit unclear. And there were certainly instances where vocab was unclear. I want to look at the 5. Familiar and unlimited flexibility. No, I think I'm going to be a bit generous and award the 6. I do think there is enough evidence in there that the candidate is at band 6 for vocabulary. And I think for grammar, I'm also going to go with band 6. So that one's quite easy. Like I mentioned during the test, I did feel like it was closer to a band 5, but then looking at the band 6, a mix of short and complex sentence forms. Yes, we have that. A variety of structures. We did have a variety of structures. We had all of those verb patterns with infinitives and gerunds. Limited flexibility, I guess. Errors frequently occur in complex structures. Yes, these rarely impede communication. There certainly was stuff in the grammar that impeded communication at times. Really. And I could imagine an examiner awarding 5, but I do think the candidate just about had enough control of grammar, not always for the 6. And pronunciation, fairly easy to award the 6 for this too. So when I look at the 6, I think it's a very, very accurate description of the candidate's language. So a range of phonological features. Yes, control is variable. Yes, there's big problems with this adding like sometimes or sometime is relaxed or relaxed. That thing happened over and over again. Problems with the v and the were. Chunking is generally appropriate, but rhythm may be affected by a lack of stress timing. Absolutely. The candidate at times speaks English as though it's a syllable-timed language, and it's not. It's a stress-timed language. Some effective use of intonation and stress, sure, but not sustained, sure. Individual words may be mispronounced, absolutely, like column instead of calm. Only causes occasional lack of clarity, yes. So I think this is a perfect description of the candidate's pronunciation. Generally can be understood without much effort, absolutely. So I think band 6 is a very clear explanation. So overall, this would give us an overall score of 5.5, which is what I call a glintermediate. at IELTS, of course, 5.5 is the lower end of B2. For me, 5.5 is, intermediate, but okay. And that's probably where I would put the candidate if I was, if I had a speaking test with him and I had to place him in a group, I would probably feel like knowing all of the C1, the B2, the B1, and the A2 groups I've had, he would fit more nicely for me in a B1 group than a B2 group. In terms of areas of improvement, I mean, there are the main one. The main one is simplify your ideas. At the moment, it's really difficult to understand what you're trying to say, not because of your pronunciation, just because of just the idea, just the logical organizing, the discourse management, really difficult to follow. Simplifying ideas can make it easier. I would say be a bit mindful of the question types. That what I mean by that is if you're asked to talk about the past, talk about the past. If you're asked to talk about the future, talk about the future. Rely less on it depends on the situation. It always depends on the situation. You don't need to use it so much. And there was definitely one thing. Yeah, find a strategy. Find a strategy for note taking for part 2. At the moment, it seems clear that you just don't have a strategy. You don't know. Seems that you don't know how to take enough notes or how to take notes properly to get you through the 2 minutes, because it feels like your speech is very, very disorganized. But overall 5.5, which is still not a bad score. The only, maybe you might feel like I'm quite negative in my feedback here. That's only because I know that you're aiming for a 7. Probably if you were only aiming for a 5, I would have been a lot more positive. But because I know you're aiming for that C1, I want you to know exactly why you're not at the C1 level. And so that's why a lot of the feedback has been a little bit negative. But I will say, as a guy, the candidate seems very nice, very polite, nice guy to speak to. If IELTS was giving marks on being a nice guy, he'd get higher than a 5.5. Let's put it that way. But yeah, those are my marks. 5.5 overall, decent attempt, but I think the candidate has IELTS coming up soon. I know the candidate did IELTS before and says he got a 6.0 for speaking. I don't see him getting more than 6.0 if he takes IELTS in the next 2 months, and even if he has a lot of lessons. I just think his English level is strong intermediate. I don't see his English level as being speaking level. Probably in his head, grammar and vocab and listening, probably he will be fine. But the communication skill, and that's a difficult thing. That's something that often takes a bit of time to develop, and you need that practice, not just of working with your teacher, but you need that experience of using English as a real language to get a feel for what is understandable for other people, what isn't understandable for other people, to pick up subconsciously some of these communicative patterns, because at the moment it feels like you don't quite have that in English. And that's why I don't see you getting higher than a 6 for speaking. I hope you do, but I don't see it. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Are my marks too harsh? Are my marks too generous? Do leave comments below. And remember, if you'd like to have your own free practice IELTS speaking test with feedback, join one of my groups. I'm on Facebook and Telegram. Candidates are always selected at random. If you want to avoid the random process, you can pay for a speaking test. A full list of my services with prices is available on my website, expertexaminer.com. Links to everything are given in the description. More videos from me coming soon. But for now, bye-bye.